I went to Wegmans quick, actually, and I just picked up one of my favorite Belgian beers, a Lef.
I saw on the story you've been crushing those lately. That's a quality brew.
Yeah.
Never heard of her.
Yeah.
What are you guys sipping on?
I got the hay burner.
Yeah, we got Team Hey Busies right here. I actually, especially because I thought this was going to be a week ago, I had extra time to prepare, and I really wanted to go out and find some beers from the cities, that I support. But you really can't Buffalo. We can get into that later, but that's the tough thing. So went with the hay burner. Never a bad choice.
Well, it's perfect because we're trying to get them as a sponsor on the pod, isn't that right, Iglo? Wouldn't you say?
Always. That's the idea. We drink you on stream, give you the plug, and you.
Wow, what a coincidence!
Plug your money into our bank accounts. But yeah, welcome, amigos. Welcome to another podcast. This is episode number 3, right?
Yeah.
And
like that.
A very special one today with a very special guest. It's one of our very close friends here, Aidan Ryan, or AidanRyan.com, as I know. And welcome to the podcast, Aidan. It's a pleasure to have you here, man.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be back as AmiGolazo and have you be our first guest. It's honestly, I didn't think it would happen, but here we are, 2021.
Well, Putin didn't think so either, but we're defying him. We're defying him as well as the conglomerate over there.
Well, you guys going back online is almost as brave as Navalny, going right back to Russia after surviving the nerve agent attack. I mean, it's complicated.
Yeah, we have been getting some comments and emails in our box stating similar things as that. So that people are starting to realize how brave we are.
Yeah.
So
very brave.
But okay, guys. Just to give everyone listening an idea of what we're going to get into today. So first of all, obviously we have Aidan on board here. One of the reasons being, Idolo and I had discussed doing kind of a series where we talked to friends of ours who are fans of the game, fans of different clubs, that sort of thing, and talk to them about how did they become a fan of a certain club or team or player, whatever it is. Reason being, in the States, we don't kind of have those immediate connections to major clubs the way they do over in Europe and South America and the rest of the world. So, I couldn't think of a better person to kick off the series with, and Idolo, I'm sure you would agree.
Exactly, and I can't wait to find out. And because, like you said, here in America, you find a lot of people might support a European team before they even support an MLS team, which is interesting. Because to this day, I'm having a hard time finding an MLS team to support, and it's been like 10 plus years here. So, yeah. So, let's kick it off. Aidan, what was your first interaction with the beautiful game, as far as back as you can remember?
Oh, yeah. Well, it certainly wasn't as early as it would have been for you guys, but it involved both of you, I believe, and that was Delaware soccer with Coach Jorge.
Legend.
Yeah, absolute legend. I was under his tutelage back in the day, and that was my first experience. I don't remember exactly why I signed up, whether my parents thought I should do it or whether I said I want to do this. Mm-hmm. But it was Delaware soccer. It was outside of school. Weeknight practices there on the pitch by the typically we were by the tennis courts in Delaware Park, and it was just such an inspiring figure. He really ran us quite hard, and like he was a coach you wanted to perform well for. So my early experiences with soccer were beautiful, really. I think the issue is, if I can, segue us toward what I'm sure where this conversation is going. As much as I loved playing the game, unlike many of my teammates and people like yourselves, I didn't go home and watch the game. I didn't have heroes in the game, and that's why at a certain point I just aged out. I stopped playing. You get to high school or whatever, interests change. and it fell away. Whereas for other people, I think, who are around us in Delaware soccer, you go home, your parents are talking about it, or you're watching it on TV, or you have a poster up on your wall. All that extra stuff that keeps you involved, I didn't have.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, Idolo, do you want to touch on that? That's definitely a really good point there.
Yeah, that's true, because for myself, and I can give you the South American perspective, the Brazilian perspective, where you're that's the main sport. So you're born just like that's what you're watching every day, instead of the late night show or the late night TV, it's like what game is on tonight for us to watch. So that's a big deal for sure, because a lot of the kids here in America go and play, that house league or that travel league, but then they go home and they're doing other stuff. There's still not all of them, obviously. A few of them nowadays, especially with YouTube and the internet, it's a little bit easier to dive in and head on into the soccer world. So.
No, absolutely. And then I guess a follow-up question to you, Aidan, on your first couple of points there, as far as, reintegration back into the world of soccer. Let's just jump right into that. What was the initial, jump back into, as you put it earlier, the beautiful game? What got you back in there?
Well, in answering that question, I want to maybe even jump back a little further, right? And touch on what I think this pod may be even all about, right? Like the American fan who doesn't have a local team, right? There were close encounters I had with that almost brought me back in. But there's a sense of not belonging sometimes. So for example, back in like 98 or 99, my Uncle Ralph Bartolotta and Aunt Maureen went on a trip to Italy, and they live in Minnesota. We see them a couple times a year. And then with their kids, my cousins Katie and Joe, and they came back and brought me back this Roma kit. And I don't even remember, this is like 88, 89. The kit is so dope. It's a child's kit, so I can't wear it. I don't even remember who was on the back because I haven't seen it so long. I've got it packed away somewhere. But I remember I loved this thing, and it was from a world I didn't know anything about really. Like I was still playing soccer at that point, but again, I didn't like watch it. And just so happened that in 99, I was visiting my other aunt, Cindy Suffoletto, down in New York City. And we took a carriage ride through Central Park, just a classic tourist thing. And this guy who was driving the carriage was an Italian guy from Rome, and he sees me in the Rome kit, and he just blows up about it. He's like, "Oh my God, are you a fan?" and everything. And I remember being this little kid. I mean, 99. I'm like what, 6, 7 years old, and this guy sees something and blows up about it. I'd never really experienced something like that before. But I didn't know what to say. He says, "Are you a Roma fan?" I don't even know what he's talking about. I've never watched Roma in my life. And that kind of stays with you, that sense that like, okay, you got the kit, you know a couple players' names. Are you still maybe an imposter in this world? Right. So just wanted to put that out there. That stays with you for a while. But everything changed, I think, when in 2012, I visited Germany for the first time. And we all went to St. Joe's. St. Joe's has this exchange program with Dortmund, Germany, which is the sister city of Buffalo. And our buddy Steve Coffett and I became good friends with Matthias Schruck. And he said, as we were graduating, "Yo, you guys should come to Germany for my 18th birthday." And we were like, "Yeah, right, dude. Okay." But the year passes because he was a year below us, and Steve and I found ourselves like 1 year into college. Summer was coming up. We had a little bit of money saved up, and we're like, "Hey, actually, it doesn't cost that much. We can stay at his house. Let's just do it."
Yeah.
So we went, and we came into Dortmund, Germany at the perfect time to collide with the ascendant Borussia Dortmund team. This is 2011, 2012. They are on the rise, dominating, and I loved what I saw. So Dortmund and Buffalo are sister cities. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but for people maybe watching the pod from Dortmund who have been there, that there are some similarities. There's a working class kind of blue collar element to it. They're similarly sized in some ways. And Dortmund has some really interesting similarities with Buffalo sports teams. right? So, you guys know this just from watching the Bundesliga. Like Dortmund's reputation is they're great at bringing up talent, but then somebody, pokes his head up too high, and Bayern Munich just grabs him, with money and poaches him from the team. And that happened with so many players back then. I mean, Mario Götze is a great example.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing then and just got snapped up to Bayern Munich, and then his name is Mud. So in Dortmund. So 2012, 2011, that summer of 2012, we watched a couple of games. We were there for a lot of the hype that was building around the team at the time, and I got a little bit into it then.
Nice. So would you say that was kind of like the full like re-immersion back into touching on those same levels of wonder and joy that you had on that carriage ride in Central Park?
Well, it was similar to that in that it actually required another push from me. So, we go there and we're still tourists. We didn't actually go to a physical game. We saw some on TV. I actually picked up this track jacket that I'm wearing right now back in 2012. So, I came home with a memento, and I thought, okay, I'm a Dortmund fan now.
Yes.
One funny thing that happened on that trip is that we went to a house party at the kid's name was Yannick. I don't remember his last name, but his parents were physiologists or physiotherapists, I think, like really well-known ones who worked with the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so they knew the team. They knew Jurgen Klopp. And we went to this party at his house, and it got kind of wild. We were playing this game called Flunky Ball in the backyard. The back neighborhood.
Is that a German word for something that we need to know?
Means, but it's kind of wild. You get like this big space, like 6 kids to a side, and you line up, and then you put beer bottles behind you, and then you have like a dodgeball, and you're trying actually to knock down the beer bottles behind the kids, and then you have to drink if you don't. It's crazy and degenerate. But after a couple rounds of that game, at which I think was very, very good, Jurgen Klopp actually stopped by the house.
Wow.
No kidding. And I had this vague, like hazy memory from almost a decade ago, and I just checked with my boys in Dortmund, Matthias Spruch and Sebastian Decker. They confirmed that this happened.
It is confirmed. Insane.
So like the proximity to Jurgen and everything, that was like dope, but I still came home to America and still didn't know that much and everything. And I'd like wear my jacket around, a college campus. And there was still that nagging feeling like, man, you don't watch Bundesliga games every weekend. Like, what are you doing, right?
Right.
So to kind of speed this up, it was actually the next trip 2 years later that was the big difference maker for me. So I graduated college at the time. I was going to go do, I was going to do a master's degree in Scotland. And it just so happened that there was this gap, couple of months, and I hit up Matthias again, and he was like, absolutely, crash at my place. So this was still on that kind of upward ascendance of Borussia.
So this is 2014 now, 15.
Yeah,
what is this?
Summer of 2014.
Okay.
Hell of a time for Borussia Dortmund. I mean, I'm not kidding.
Germany in general.
Oh my God, yeah, in Germany in general. The atmosphere was high. And you know what else is different? Our friends in Germany had changed too. So before we would like watch it on TV, they'd talk about it. When I came in 2014, when there was a game on, everything stopped. We went to the pub. We would go to these like neighborhood bars where you wouldn't even pay for drinks. They would just like mark your coaster because nobody wanted to interrupt the game for any reason. So we watched these games.
That's awesome.
We actually took a cross-country road trip into Poland, and I got to watch Aubameyang's first goal against Munich.
Wow.
With the whole family around, aunts, uncles, cousins, little kids. And that experience, like, just solidified. You're not an outsider anymore. You're actually fully into it. And this is really the closer for me in Dortmund. I actually got to go to a game at the stadium.
Oh my God!
Of course, stood in the legendary Süd Tribune, where
so you were there.
The energy is high. I was at one point almost ejected. Really no fault of my own. I don't really have a great grasp of German. I don't know the fundamentals, but you're there for a couple months, you kind of pick it up, right? Or so you think. So they're chanting. and I'm trying to like pick up the chant and say what they're saying. And one of the chants is Forza, 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 which is like strength, 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 force, strength, whatever, power. And I misheard them and just started chanting Forza, 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 which, I mean, I won't say on the pod, but any of the German friends listening know what that means. There were some people who were like,
there's no way.
So anyway, that's it. That's how I became a Dortmund fan.
That's awesome.
There's no turning back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So is that probably your favorite moment of being a fan of Dortmund, is attending the game and just being part of it, I would say?
Oh my God. It's hard to describe the feeling, man, of
Right.
standing in the Zoo Tribune. Like, I grew up going to Bills games and Sabres games. I've been to Yankees games. There's nothing like this. The energy, the savagery of standing in the Zoo Tribune.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to see how, just in a couple years difference. And do you think it was because of, like, you were a little bit older now, you could go to the pubs, or because you could go to the pub before too, right? So what changed in those 2 years?
I really think it was the social scene, right? Like,
okay,
the guys we were friends with, Jan, Yannick, Matthias, Basti, Leif, they were all lifelong Dortmund fans, but like,
just again, booze hounds too.
What's that?
Oh, shit. Complete booze hounds.
Yeah, complete booze hounds.
It sounds like some ultras. We're dealing with some ultras.
Yeah. When you're 18 in Germany, I mean, it's a goofy time. You're wilding out. You can be a fan of soccer, but then like just a little bit of maturity, and the maturity of Borussia Dortmund between 2011, when they were like coming out of the gate hot, 2012, to 2014, where all of a sudden, they're picking up players like Aubameyang. I mean, the 2014, 2013 roster was absolutely stacked. I mean, McHarriton was there. Royce was younger, and whatever. It was a great time. So it was a combination, I think, of our age and where Borussia Dortmund was in that particular year.
Yeah, they were at the top of their powers in those years, for sure.
Absolutely.
Who's your favorite Dortmund player then, Aidan, of all time? Like from since you've been a fan?
Oh man. Well, I've got a funny answer to that one, right? Because I ended up, like, the year in 2014 we were there, Aubameyang, like, just being there to watch Aubameyang's first goal against Munich. And that's so important because that's such a rivalry. I was like, all right, he's my guy. I love this guy. He pulled on the Spider-Man mask for the first time as a Dortmund player. That was dope, man. So I was like, all right, I'm with this guy.
Yeah.
I've got a kind of love for people like Royce, who have stayed around for so long.
Right, you got to respect that. Yeah.
I've just got love and respect. But I'll tell you what, I have always felt watching Dortmund that Klopp is like basically one of the players. Like, he's on the sidelines and he's almost like shouting, "Put me in, coach!" But then he's like, "Oh, I am the coach."
I'm the fucking coach. Yeah.
He's the guy. I think the personality that most captivated me.
Sure. Yeah, he fit really well in that team for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the dude's. I mean, I'm talking about personality. I mean, he just exudes. He gets so much out of his players. All the hugs and bullshit. I would not have liked that personally, but I think it works with a lot of the players he has, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I guess back to your point on the issue of being a fan in the States and not really feeling that connection, that kind of thing, because that's something that I definitely run into and see, like at Mesque or around talking to Americans that are into soccer in general. There's definitely like a lack of confidence to then, when you're talking with people that know the game, to say, hey, I'm this team's fan, I support this club. I guess for you, at what point could you truly feel comfortable? And do you remember that time when you can really just be like, hey, I'm here for the Dortmund game. I'm a Dortmund fan. I don't really care what you think. If you think I'm, some fanboy bullshit type thing or whatever. When were you confident in acknowledging your fanhood there?
Dude, I got to say, after you've stood in the Dortmund Tribune and absolutely blown out your vocal cords screaming Forza, you can do anything. You have more cred than anybody living in the US, bar none. When I rolled into Mesque after 2014 for a Dortmund game, and I saw these other wannabe spunzes around, and no disrespect, like these are nice guys, you know.
Yeah.
And they're like,
But
oh,
they weren't there.
How did you like, Dortmund? And I'm like, well, first of all, Jurgen Klopp came to a house party where I was absolutely train wrecked. And two, I've been to the Zoo Tribune, and I stood shoulder to shoulder with these, blonde-headed Teutons, absolutely screaming their heads off.
That's amazing.
I mean, you've got all the street cred you could ever ask for. I don't think I can get any
Sure. No, that's a good answer. I mean, then would you say that, anyone that gets to a game, does that automatically mean that they are by default then can call themselves a true fan and all that?
Well, it's a tricky answer because I think, accessibility and, finances play into this. Like, I don't want to say some people just simply couldn't do that. You can't,
Right.
maybe you don't have the money to go, you can't afford it at the time. It's not realistic. Your job doesn't allow you. And I don't want to say that that's like the bar. And plus there are probably some people who could just drop the G's, fly over and, get a box seat or something, and they don't know what being a true
Exactly.
fan.
Exactly.
But I think there has to be that kind of emotional connection wherever it comes from.
Yeah. No, good
Agreed.
point.
That's a good point because it was really the Dortmund team was really because of your friends who lived in Dortmund, right? It wasn't like a pick you made. It was like, here I am, here are my friends. This is
Exactly.
it's kind of new. I'm going to join this club, which is similar to how like I like Palmeiras, so Oliver supports Palmeiras in a certain way, right? And then there's certain places where you're kind of born into a team. That's how I was. Like you're just born, and that's the team your family supports because that's from the town. So for fans who are kind of like, they don't have that, right? They're kind of in the blind. They're just, they're random looking for a team.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think should be certain things a person should look for in a club when they're searching for a club to support?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I don't have like the one answer to that, but I think a good, guiding principle would be some kind of cultural connection. So like I mentioned before, Buffalo and Dortmund are not just sister cities. There are real similarities there, spirit of the teams. So when you come from an underdog city like Buffalo or like, Detroit or something like that, going to a team that is like constantly belittled or that is an underdog that like is an upset, that has better finance teams poaching their best players, that just makes sense. Like somebody from New York City isn't going to be a Dortmund fan. Right, that doesn't make sense. Similarly, I think actually that better explains my Premier League affiliation, which is of course Liverpool. Got the
there you go.
Yeah, Avi in the back. Yeah. Expand on that.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So totally different situation. I had never been to England at the point that I became a Liverpool fan. I was really just while I was in the UK, I had moved at that point to Scotland. This is the September 2014. And at that point, I just decided I'd start following the Premier League. I'd go to the pubs, watch the games. But in Scotland, I was dropped into this totally different environment of the religious divisions that underlay the Premier League and the sub-leagues, right? Mm-hmm. So even though it might, like looking at the Premier League, you might not see this, but beneath that is this, centuries history of the Protestant Catholic thing, where every town, every city would have one Protestant club, one Catholic club. So like in Edinburgh, that was particularly pronounced with the Hibs and the Hearts. In Glasgow, you've got the, Celtics and the Rangers. Mm-hmm. And just being a Catholic kid from Irish North Buffalo, I was automatically going to go with the Irish Catholic team. I'm a Celtics guy. I'm a Hibs guy. So I remember I was actually I'd started kind of watching Premier League a bit, but I'd really picked an affiliation at that point. I think it was actually the night of the Super Bowl of 2015. I don't even remember who was playing, but we were all staying up for it. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was in the student union with a friend of mine, Robert, his name was. He was like an older guy. He was like 40 or 41. He'd like left a career, decided he wanted to be an academic, and came back. He was in my program. And he was a Northern Irish guy. He had this beautiful, smooth, like understated Northern Irish accent. He was a very like soft-spoken guy. And I was like, and we were actually watching on one screen a Premier League game, like highlights. And I was like, "Oh man, what's your team?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not supposed to say this, but I like Liverpool." Like, "Oh dude, what do you mean you're not supposed to say that?" And he's like, "Well, you know, they're the Catholic team." It's like, what are you talking about? The Catholic team? Like the Premier League doesn't have a Catholic team. He was like, no, and he explained the history. And in fact, Liverpool was such a destination for Irish laborers at one point, for really a long time, that it was like, you know, a second, like a piece of Ireland in England. And the more I learned about it, like, oh, this is maybe that kind of cultural affiliation I was looking for without knowing it, you know? The Irish thing going on, the Catholic thing going on, the working class thing going on. In some cases, you know, I'd say like the underdog thing going on, because obviously Liverpool dominated through the late 60s into the, you know, through the 70s. But then there was a long drought before Klopp. And boy, I picked him at just the right time.
That's right. Yeah. So it wasn't because they started winning type of deal, right? That's
No, it was before they started winning, and I think technically before Klopp went over. Like by 1 year, right? By 1 year.
Yeah.
And after he came over, at that point, it was just a done deal. Because again, my affiliation is to Klopp above all else, which means when he does leave Liverpool, and then, you know, surprise, surprise, he takes over as head coach of Germany, I'm gonna have to, you know, root for them.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe it won't be this next World Cup though, because I still want to root for France for that one.
Yeah. Good looks. No, one bit too, that just to touch on recent events with, as we're talking about Klopp here, a trend that I've kind of noticed so far during this kind of bizarre, unprecedented Premier League season has been that, you know, Jose Mourinho has been kind of the guy in the past that everyone loves to hate on and kind of make fun of and stuff, and is seen as more so like the least favorite,
it's because he's great. It's because he's great.
Yeah, exactly. And whereas Klopp is always kind of for the neutral, and just the pundits and all that have all kind of been raving about him, you know, nice guy, friendly and all that. And they love his football. Liverpool's been amazing. But I've noticed a trend up until literally today when they happened to play Mourinho and beat Mourinho 3-1 today. If anyone didn't see the game, this will be airing probably tomorrow, so no spoilers here. But what I've noticed is that Mourinho, for kind of like this, most of the season this year, is can kind of, it seems as though he's been more like laissez-faire and just kind of chill, and then kind of shooting these digs at Klopp for being sort of a clown on the sidelines and saying that he would never get away with that. Only Klopp can get away with it because that's just how he is. And I've seen Klopp kind of been now pivoting over to more of the dark side in the pundits' view, because he's been a little bit snippy with some reporters, notably because they've been on kind of a poor run up until today. Right. And I just there have been guys, a couple other pods I listened to, that saying just because Klopp, when he responds to a question, it's always with a smile and kind of like, not fake, but he always has a smile on his face. And it seems as though people maybe had been pivoting to more liking maybe Mourinho more, the neutral fan. And I just curious as to if you had any, you know, thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I'd wonder if maybe I even want to ask some of my German friends what they think about this, because in my opinion, just because Klopp just has a big set of choppers, dude. He looks like he's smiling because he's got a big mouth. He's got a lot of teeth. Didn't
he get his teeth done recently?
Probably.
Those are chiclets.
He's always had that kind of like, you know, big jawed grin thing going on. That's not to say that he's been like the nicest guy. You know, he's not impolite. He's not rude. And I don't think that he's egotistical or anything, but he can be a little bit high-handed sometimes. and he certainly can be a little bit impatient with those interactions, you know. So
Sure.
maybe the Prem is just catching up with like realizing that. And then of course I think there's the added stress of this year being just absolutely bonkers. And Liverpool doing terribly well right now.
Also got to think of now he has won the Champions League. He has won the Premier League, right? He's
Yeah.
kind of done it. Like he came, he saw, and he conquered. And he could maybe be feeling like I don't need to take the crap anymore. I kind of already proved it. Same with Mourinho, they proved it, and you like to see those head-to-head matches and the post press conference. They're always just as good when you get those reactions out of them. So I'm all for that. I love that stuff.
Yeah. I will say it's no coach's or player's favorite part of the game, right? These post press matches, nobody wants to be there, but I also like that the reporters can sometimes get a rise out of them because it makes it more enjoyable for us.
Oh yeah, and it
Exactly.
humanizes these guys as well. And I will say too, and something another very recent event with Tuchel becoming Chelsea's new manager, leaving, got canned from PSG not long ago, and obviously Frank Lampard just got the boot, club legend over at Chelsea. But now Tuchel's kind of the new German darling in the Premier League, and he likes to play pretty high octane offensive football. Like Chelsea just had the most passes in a match they've had since like 2004, some crazy shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tuchel has kind of followed Klopp's many of his clubs. Like he coached Mainz, I believe, after Klopp did. He coached Dortmund after Klopp did.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there was no PSG affiliation, but now he's in the Prem as his Klopp. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Tuchel's integration with the Premier League and European managers will go. So should be interesting.
Yeah, that is an astute observation. I wouldn't be surprised if that develops into one of the more interesting rivalries in the Prem.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so for sure. Yeah, I mean, Elo, I guess what are your? I'm curious to ask you. And, you know, we don't have to keep bugging Aidan, but as far as like you know, Palmeiras fans, and how do you, when you see someone say at a bar or whatever in a Brazilian league kit or something, how often is it someone that's just a fan? How often is it someone that is truly from there or has some sort of connection? What do you see on that front?
So I've had about 3 or 4 interactions with other Palmeiras fans here in Buffalo, where one was at UB where I was playing intramurals and somebody was wearing the Palmeiras jacket. I went up, I spoke to them. They run their own podcast and everything, and he was a big fan, right? And that made sense. He's playing intramurals, he's got the jacket, so it made sense that he would be a big fan. So that was the only person where I've actually met that was a real fan. Here, the other 2 times were, once was at Wegmans where I had a jacket on, and this kid comes up to me. He was like, it's like organizing the Kiwis or something like that. And he comes up to me. He's a worker. He was a worker. He comes up to me and he's like, that's a Palmeiras jacket, right? I'm like, yeah. Are you a fan? He's like, no, my dad is a fan, and he always talks about him and stuff, and you know, and that's a unique example, right? That is in his home, but he's still not like a huge fan, right? He's like, I was trying to ask him like, oh, how much do you know and stuff. He's like, oh, I don't know much. I know my dad watches it and he likes it. And then the other time was also, I think it was at UB as well, just walking at University of Buffalo, just walking the hallways, and somebody recognized it because there's a couple of foreign exchange students there, and so they were actually a fan of a different team from Brazil. They like Santos, and they had some banter to say to me, and then they just kept walking.
Unreal.
So that stuff, you know, is funny. Like, I'm kind of mad at first, but then you laugh. So here it's up here it's hit or miss, but like in Brazil it's a totally different game. In Europe, as when I was over there as well for a year, you know, it's a different game. You see kids soccer's everywhere. It's really here in the US where you get the pockets, and you never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes you might see a crazy kit, you know, that you never think you would see around here. Like I think the other day I saw somebody wearing like a retro Mexico kit. I was like, that's
Oh,
awesome. And then, you know, and you get that stuff. So yeah, I just think it's such a big sport, and you have so many options to pick from, clubs that I, you know, maybe sometimes people get overwhelmed. They don't know.
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that when I've spoken to friends that are, a lot of the time they play. Maybe they're on teams that we play on, and they just are kind of like bashful or ashamed of how they become fans, and they want to immediately kind of, you know, play it down like, oh, you know, I just kind of like them. But it's like, no, dude, like this is your club. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not gonna
Right.
give you shit for it
Exactly.
as long as you're not because the other side of the coin is the guys that are in that position, but then will play the overconfident, you know, cocky bullshit and act like they're, you know, some sort of savant.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
I get that point where it's like they know everything, like that rubs me a wrong way. But what if they just started liking this club and they think that it is the greatest club ever, aka clubism, is what
Clubism.
you know, my club is the greatest club. Your club's shite. Whatever my club does is better. And then you go and find out the guy started liking them because he was playing them with FIFA last year. And you know, so
For sure.
what
do you think about that, Aidan? What are your thoughts on that, Aidan? Yeah.
Well, I don't know how close that arrow passes by me. Maybe it hits because I feel like I'm guilty of clopism.
No.
But no, you definitely see that just hanging around Mesque as much as I do. Like, especially back like maybe 2 years ago when we were really regulars for Saturday and Sunday matches. Maybe that's 4 years ago. I don't know. But there you definitely get the diehards, and then you get some people who clearly just, it's like they woke up one day and decided that this would be their club. And you know, that's the age we're in right now, where, you know, anybody can think they're an aficionado because they go to the right Reddit thread and they watch all the videos, and, you know, they fill up their free time learning stuff. But it's almost like that kid in high school or college who, you know, wants to impress their teacher by using all of these vocab words in a paper.
Yeah.
You know, it's obvious. It's obvious when you're, you know, shouting like, "You'll never walk alone." You know, like
right click.
But then again, wouldn't you say that's good though? That now the casual fan has access to the you know, whether it be Reddit or Twitter or message boards or chat rooms, whatever you want to call it, Discord channels, to get this full inside scoop and then become like fully integrated in the club and know about the rumors, know about the, you know, you now have the ability to in a matter of a week become a super fan and know a lot about the club because so much is out there. But in the same token, right, you can get it's like that feeling of the band is getting too popular, right? This little band I knew about is getting too popular now, and everybody knows about my band, and they're too mainstream now. So like, because I have feelings both ways, you know, like I like it that you get more fans, but then sometimes you get the plastics, right? Which
No, that's a really great point. I'm glad you brought that up, just to bring us back down to earth there, because we can all laugh at like the newest fans, and maybe part of that ribbing's like part of the game. But because I was certainly there, you guys probably weren't, just because of your upbringing and whatnot. But I think as long as it's in a healthy place, like acknowledging that kind of fandom is a little bit goofy and a little bit funny and maybe deserves some ribbing, as long as they're not excluded from the game and at a certain point, right? Because I don't see that happen either. I don't see people at the soccer bars being like,
no, yeah,
oh, you can't cheer with us. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
That would be crazy.
These are the 5+ fans this side. All the rest are over there.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like we're just with the population is so small already.
If any, you know, because I've been there before. There've been times where my club is just totally shite, you know, like Palmeiras, they've been relegated before. And there's times where I couldn't, you know, when we were down in slumps, I couldn't tell you sometimes who some of those guys that were starting for our team, right? And there's the joke that you're like, oh, you're a fan, name the starting, name a couple starters right now. And if you can't say a couple starters, then you're probably not a real fan. But if you hear that, you should take that as motivation to, man, I got to study up. I got to know more about my club. How can I support my club and get behind my club? A lot of these clubs now, they have those, what is it called? Memberships. It's not like season tickets, but you become a member, right? You're part of the fan club and you have a monthly fee and things like that. So a lot of fans not as a way to prove it, but as a way to keep supporting their clubs in different ways, will become a member of their club and, have monthly fees where, sometimes they're even able to purchase players because of these, club fees.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Sure.
The way it expands that way.
I got a question for you guys, if I may. Obviously, a lot has been said about the changing dynamic of soccer fandom in America, which seems to be tied first to the MLS, which is, in my opinion, just not that interesting. More importantly, tied to the performance of our teams in the World Cups. So, the last two, men's World Cups, the Americans have at least been more fun to watch, and it's been, even if you wouldn't grant me that, like, it's been fun to participate in the watching here. But then there's the national women's team that I would argue is just across all sports, definitely the best team in America right now. College sports, any NFL, MLB, whatever. Mm-hmm. They just, as far as record and dominance in their field. Based on that, do you think we might be approaching a point where soccer in America fandom just explodes at like the youth level, and there's a bonanza of people just picking teams without necessarily tons of time or affiliation or travel or whatever? And how does that change the way fandom looks?
Well, I mean, absolutely. First of all, on the women's national team point, the U.S. has been dominant for years. I would argue, though, there's still a lot of improvement at the development and youth level that needs to happen still for something like that to happen, because a lot of those top women's national team players play their trade over in Europe, whether it's in France or in the Prem, because the funding for the leagues in the States right now is pitiful. And I know there's still that whole equality debate as far as the men's and women's team goes and pay and all that. But as far as generating more fans and people and that bonanza you speak of, I mean, I'm all for any sort of bonanza typically and in general. And honestly, I think it would be great, because I get sick of seeing the same old shit on ESPN every week where they talk about the same 4 sports stories on repeat and in a loop for 6 hours a day. I would love to see much more discussion and higher quality discussion. So getting rid of ESPN FC wholesale and having some legitimate soccer conversations on major American sports networks. The only way that'll happen is when more and more money gets funneled and pushed into developing and spreading the game in the States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to add to that, the women's soccer here obviously dominates. And I think women's soccer in general has a lot of potential, but the rest of the world, especially South America, needs to catch up for women's soccer. There's still a lot of basic stuff in South America that women's soccer just doesn't get. They don't have proper funding. They don't have proper, equipment to practice, to train. Sometimes they don't even have a way to, have their uniforms. They have to wear, the men's team uniforms. So as soon as, there's a huge story going on right now with the Colombian women's soccer team where they're all getting together and speaking up against the federation, how they weren't given, the proper equipment. And there's sexual allegations against the coaches and things like that. It's getting real messy. Coaches paying the money, coaches asking them for money in order for them to move up, and real shady shit. So that in general there's a lot of work to be done there. Here in America, because they are so good, they're a little past that, but there's still that difference with the wage, and that's whole discussion on its own.
Mm.
And with the fandom, the bonanza thing, I agree with all of it. We need more coverage. That's the problem here. It's you know what, I'll say it. I feel like here in America, soccer is viewed as a poor sport, a poor person sport. You just kick a ball around in the field, and it doesn't get like, I feel like that's a stigma a little bit sometimes, and then it doesn't get the view, the mainstream view until it's a World Cup year, and it's for a couple months, and then that's it. And typical America, let's make some money on it. It's World Cup, it's a hot topic, right? Where then they're ignoring the whole base of just, you have the MLS with still no relegation system, where America could easily make that happen with the amount of people that just live here and clubs and money. It's a tough one, but I think that's where it starts. And I'll always say that I think it needs to start there with the MLS relegation promotion. And
I think, forget that soccer is even happening for 3.5 years at a stretch. Remember when the men's team is in the World Cup. And as far as the women's team goes, I mean, for many people, they only remember that they're around after they've won a damn World Cup.
Right. The most successful team there is. So, yeah, and it's like you get a couple of fans every World Cup, right? New fans that they'll see, and there's a star player, Pulisic, now before it's Donovan, right? And you get a couple of Dempsey, and then you get a couple of new fans, and then it dies down. But it needs to be consistent on that mainstream, always on, where they're talking about it more than just showing maybe a goal on the ESPN top 10. That's the only time you'll see it.
No, and I think just quickly on as far, because you did touch on the recent U.S. talent, I'll say right now there are more things are looking up. Essentially, is going to be my point here. But right now, the amount of U.S. players playing abroad and growing in foreign leagues and European leagues is I have never seen. I mean, the fact that we've got players starting for major teams and scoring goals and having meaningful contributions and becoming fan favorites even at times, that's a really good sign for
that is huge
soccer in the States. So
they can't start there as well, right? With poster boys kind of help spread. Yeah. Then the kids want to be them. So unless what's that?
Now we just need AmiGolazo to file for an IPO. Media aspect, just torpedo ESPN.
I meant to preface the pod with some sort of bit about how we would use this to get everyone's mind off of the current Robin Hood investigation, if you will. I don't even know if it's an investigation yet, but shit show I think maybe would be better suited. But so hopefully, Aidan, our question or our answers to your question were sufficient there. I mean,
absolutely,
yeah. Do we leave? I think we touched on a good amount there, right?
Yeah, there was like a question wrapped in a question that you guys did admirably with that. It's a fascinating bundle of topics.
What a treat. And we'll definitely be touching on future specifics as far as women's soccer and youth play in the States and guys abroad in future pods. So be sure to continue to tune in. But there was one last bit I wanted to just check out with you guys on sort of, and this is something that is another potential way that the game's going to continue to grow here is we all know about like the Jordan brand's relationship with PSG and how they've done a few of their kits over the past couple seasons and continue to release like streetwear that is PSG focused and also, breaching outside of just the soccer fan to now just people that like, clothes and shit.
Fire.
But one thing I wanted to point out, and I'm actually going to share my screen here. So hopefully this is,
let's go.
Hopefully this is okay for the interwebs here, but can you guys see this right now?
Yep.
All right, so we got to talk about this because this is we're going to get your thoughts. I'm just going to have a brief rant, but basically what Nike's trying to do here, we've got Liverpool, Chelsea, and Tottenham. Each already have 3 kits, right? They're releasing a 4th edition jersey. You see this often. But in this case, they're tying them to specific sneakers within the Air Max collection that have been released in the past. And I haven't read on whether or not these are going to be worn in actual Premier League games, but I don't know about you guys, but these are freaking atrocious. Atrocious. No. Look at this.
All of them? You don't like any of them?
I don't like a single one.
This looks like some kind of weird baseball soccer mashup, the one with the stripe.
Oh, so they do show the shoes that could go with
it. Yeah. These are the ones that they're inspired off of.
The shoes are for the most part inoffensive, except for the Hotspurs one over there, which looks like some kind of like goth chick from 8th grade in 2006. like an emo scene, like plaid thing. This looks absolutely stupid. You'd see that running around Lasertron. The other two are fine. The kits are garbage.
Yeah.
Utter garbage. The 180 Air one is so offensive to the senses. The middle one is like a confusion between baseball and football. And then the last one, I don't even know what to say about that. And who's that model? He looks like a demented Timber.
Wait, so you wouldn't purchase this Liverpool kit right here with the black sleeves and with the pinstripes?
No, if Liverpool wanted to if Jurgen Klopp slid into my DMs and was like, oh, sponsored content, can we send you one and you'll take a picture of yourself in it? No, I'd turn him right down.
There's a lot of clubs coming out with these crazy fourth kits. Like I think Barcelona even is coming out with a specific El Clasico kit.
A fifth kit.
Yeah, the fifth kit. And it makes you wonder, it's obviously for the money, right? You're going to sell more kits or does it help expand the brand or does it hurt it? Like right now, we're calling it trash.
No, well, here's the thing, man. It's got to be for an event, right? Like an El Clasico kit, at least to me, has the facade of legitimacy. If it's not for that, then it should be an absolutely dope brand collab that makes sense on an aesthetic level. And for an example, I will point to the Jordan PSG collab of a few years ago. When that came, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
That was absolutely dope, right? It's a brand collision. It's bringing the American fans in. They're like, oh, what is this PSG thing? Jordan is like, internationally recognized symbol. Like, all right, that's cool. This just random Nike shoes that don't have any kind of following. What the heck is this? I would like to be like I don't know, like I'm not even sure which team I'd pick, like a Juventus Yeezy 2 collab. That would be
Juventus, they have done some cool stuff. Juventus has done some interesting stuff in the past. There's every now and then you'll see like concept kits. I think sometimes Footy Headlines post some concept kits. And there's some like Italian clubs with like Gucci, or like some fashion brand. But I like this idea. I'm not gonna say I don't like it. I just don't like the way it was executed. Right? I think there's potential there.
It looks half-assed. It looked like some high school, seniors doing do they even call it a thesis in high school? But like a final project, and they got access to like Photoshop for a week or something. That's what they ended up coming up with.
Yeah.
They
like Manchester United and West Side Gun.
Oh, could you imagine something like that?
Right? Yeah, I can. I'd buy
it. They would, I don't think they would ever and that's another thing I'll say. MLS, please stop with just the Adidas kits. Why does every team need? I know it's a deal, it's the money. But it just bothers me. Every kit is Adidas.
That's an American concept where all the national leagues, whether it's baseball, football, basketball,
right,
all have the same brand that does the kits. And whereas, in the Prem, Europe in general, you've got different brands bidding on all these different kits. But yeah, the MLS jerseys are essentially the same template, just recycled with different colors, maybe a different line here or there, but that's pretty much it. So
it's lazy. But I think you guys should do an AmiGolazo fan base poll for the best possible team and designer matchup for a fourth kit or a fifth kit. I just got another one. Madrid, Virgil Abloh.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this.
These make dirty sense. You should definitely throw it out to the fans.
Yeah,
We got to see what the people think for sure. But yeah, maybe that's another thing that could attract more fans out here and make the kits a little bit more, fashionable, more flash, different templates, not the same templates over and over again.
yeah, yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, absolutely. Well, I mean, guys, I don't have much more to jump into. Otherwise, are there any bits you guys still wanted to touch on?
I wanted you to explain. You had here in a preview doc oil barons. You explain what you meant by oil barons.
Okay, what I mean by that is this ties back into guys that are looking to find a club that they don't have one yet. So essentially, there are a lot of clubs in England right now, specifically, but then other places as well, like PSG, where you have major oil players coming in and dumping, hundreds of millions of dollars into clubs to bring in players. Recent rumors are Newcastle that fell through this summer. How many new Newcastle fans do you think we could have seen if that were to go through? And Newcastle's all of a sudden signing, I don't know, Haaland or some shit,
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant. Are you one of those people, or do you like the guys that you got a gnarly like punk rock head coach like Sean Dyche, who's got this crazy red beard and he had tons of piercings when he was younger and played bass in a black metal band? Like that's way cooler than some dude, some Saudi guy coming over saying, "I want that guy to come play on my team," and all of a sudden you're a fan. You know what I mean?
Well, we've already got a situation now where, like, Fenway Group, an American investment company that owns the Red Sox, owns Liverpool. What if Buffalo, New York's very own oil baron, fracking king Terry Pagula, just dropped into the Prem and scooped up Hull City? Would that change the game? I'm not going to become a Hull fan if Buffalo.
Let me tell you something about Terry Pagula. He has bitten off way more than he can chew already. He got the Bills figured out. Still got to get over that hump. The Sabres are a disaster because he gave it to his wife Kim to run, and they are a shit show.
Yeah,
if he were to pick up one more team, I'm convinced that I don't even want to. I don't want to say it because I'll get a lot of hate in the comments.
Probably.
But I just don't think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, you never know. AmiGolazo LLC Corp Inc. might one day strike gold, digging for gold somewhere, and who knows?
That's right.
We'll start a sports society club of Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were so close up until they stopped letting us trade GameStop and stocks.
Mm-hmm.
We could have been there sooner than we thought.
That's close.
Yeah.
But,
unbelievable. Well, Aidan, before we let you go here, I do have one final question for you. I do remember years ago talking to you about how you would bet money on Aubameyang to score, so you could have some money to partake in recreational activities. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, man, that's funny. I forgot about that as like part of the journey, but no, I think that was an important stop on my road to being a true Dortmund fan. So this would have been
on the line, huh? A little skin on the game.
Oh yeah, right. When you're invested, when you have something to lose. I think I was already a pretty hardcore fan summer 2014, but then by summer 2015, Matthias, my German brother of sorts,
great guy.
Absolutely great guy, legend, ride or die. He came to visit me in Scotland, and he's a great guy. He's a savvy guy. Somehow, despite living in the European Union for his entire life, he didn't realize that the UK had a separate currency, and the exchange rate was not favorable. So he came to Scotland, and with a couple €100 or something, blew through that in a couple days. We're going to jazz clubs every night. And by day 3, he's like, Aidan, he goes through the whole explanation. He's like, I didn't know exchange rates.
Do it. as much as you can remember.
And I'm like, oh, dude, crap. Like, so I also didn't have a lot of money because this is the end of a full year in Scotland. I was on like loans. I wasn't allowed to work with my visa. I was making money like literally busking on the streets with my buddy James at the time. I was playing a cajon and he was playing guitar. We, you know, a big tourist town, so we'd make some money, but not that much money. So like I could support myself, but I couldn't like be fronting Matthias for the innumerable pints we were throwing back daily.
Yeah.
So I forget which one of us had the idea, and frankly I bet it was him because he's crazy. We were like, let's go to the Ladbrokes betting shop and let's just win big. Let's get a windfall. So we roll in there with our like last quid, you know, dropping actual coins into the machine. And Matthias, who followed Bundesliga much more closely and the whole league, was like, all right, so we're going Dortmund to win. Dortmund's going to win against Bayern Munich. Aubameyang's going to score in the second half. And then we started combining it with crazy stuff. We were like, you know, the Red Sox are going to win this game. And by the way, like Nadal is going to score, like, you know.
Yeah.
And then we had to wait for the results to come in. So we just hunkered up at a pub in the West End of Newtown in Edinburgh. And, you know, we were like nursing pints because we literally could not afford to buy more. And then when we saw the winnings come in and we have all the tickets spread out in the bar in front of us. And we're like watching multiple games. We even got the barkeep to put on ones that weren't on the screens. And they came in. I haven't had a thrill like that before or since. It was truly electrifying. We came into the Ladbrokes waving this ticket. And, you know, I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was a lot.
Yeah, that's always an easy one. Aubameyang to score. Not lately, but back then it was good.
Back in the day, back in the summer of 2015, safe bet.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Aidan, for hopping on and chatting with us. It's been a real pleasure. I appreciate it.
Pleasure is all mine, gentlemen. I'm so happy to see the Phoenix-like ascendance of AmiGolazo, and to be a small part of it is a privilege and a pleasure in my life.
Of course, you're an angel investor, and we know that you will be back on the pod again at some point.
I look forward to that day, gents.
Of course.
Cheers, fellas.
Thank you, amigos. Enjoy the pod. Enjoy the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He always does it like this. He just leaves.
Just drop
he just drops out.
The Irish goodbye.
It's like he never says bye. It's like the official bye, and we're done.
Yeah, that's hilarious. All right, man. Well, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. We'll have you back some point. We're thinking more topics.
Absolutely.
Thanks for dropping in, man. Thanks for the time.
Listen. Later.
Peace.